a CNC machine in the shop presents a lot of really cool possibilities when it comes to precision and repeatability. And you know, I love making boxes. I really love making them with hand tools and with power tools, but you can certainly use a CNC machine to create a perfectly milled box. And there's something very appealing about that to me. Now some of you may say, well, all you need is a file and some wood and the machine will do all the work. And I mean, I guess that's true to some extent, but there is a lot more to it than that. So I thought, you know what, let's go through the process of actually making a really nice box from scratch for the CNC machine. And I'll take you guys along. Test, 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 test. So first of all, I want to cut all the parts for this box on the CNC machine. I don't want to have to deal with any hinges, any clasps, any additional hardware. If you have your piece of wood, you have everything you need to make this box. That's the idea. Secondly, let's talk joinery. What kind of joinery are we going to use for this box? Well, personally, I'm partial to box joints or finger joints, like they're also called, because I think they're beautiful, they're practical, they're utilitarian, and you can cut them with the pieces laying flat, as opposed to like dovetails, where one of the pieces of wood need to sit upright and the other one goes like this. So there's just a lot more setup with that type of joint. Let's do an inset bottom for stability. And let's do the same type of design for the lid. So let's do a sliding lid that goes in and out of a groove, which is simple and beautiful. So now when I have my file ready to go, I'm first going to do a test cut. And I'm just going to use some 1/4-inch plywood to make sure that everything is right before using my nice wood. Oh, box joints. In terms of box joints size, let's do 1/2-inch size joints. You could also do like a 1/4-inch, that looks good, but I like 1/2-inch. And I'm gonna be using a 1/4-inch hardwood for this box. So the first bit I'm using is an 1/8-inch bit. So the next thing I'm going to do now is position the spindle and set the X and Y and Z axis. Dust shoe first. And now I'm going to turn the spindle and the dust collection and do this cut. Whenever possible, I like to first do a test cut on some cheaper material. That's not always an option, but it is much nicer to mess up some cheap plywood as opposed to your nice hardwood. But that brings me to design, because working with the CNC and stuff is really all about the design file and getting that right. So let's go over actually designing this and what to think about. But before that, I just want to take a quick break and say thanks to the sponsor of this video, which is 3-in-1. Really appreciate their support. Today we're going to take one of their products and do a little maintenance just in time for fall. I'm going to take a wild guess. You have a shop in your garage? A fair one of you probably do, or you're one of those weird people who actually park your car in there. Either way, you know one thing you can do right now to keep your garage doors in good shape? Apply some 3-in-1 garage door lube. It's no fun when these doors are creaky and loud and not working properly, so to prevent that from happening, pick up a can of 3-in-1 garage door lube and use it to lubricate the tracks, hinges, pulleys, etc. And then bring the door up and down to distribute the product. On the can, it says stops squeaks and eliminates sticking, waterproofs and prevents rust and corrosion. And I think that sounds like a good idea to do if you have a garage door, right? So thanks so much to 3-in-1, and let's get back to designing the project. Okay, so first of all, I'm making a box that measures 5.5 by 4.5 inches, and that's 3 inches high. So I'm going to make one side each, complete with box joints, and then copy it so I have 2 sides. I'm using Aspire by Vectric for the software, but the principles will be the same no matter what software you're using. Once I have made my box joints, and obviously they're 1/2 inch long and 1/4 inch deep because that's the thickness of the wood, then I'm making the grooves, like the pockets for the top and the bottom to slide into. I'm also adding these little round circles in the corners of the box joints, and I'm going to run those with a finer bit, a 1/16 inch bit. Now, the front and the back sides are slightly different sizes. The front is a little shorter because the lid is sliding in and out. I also need a top and a bottom. The bottom is going to be just a touch smaller because the top is also going to be a lid going all the way out on one side, whereas the bottom sits inset. I'm also adding this little piece on the side here that I'm going to glue onto the lid here, and it's going to make the box feel a bit more seamless and also provide like a little handle to grab onto as you open and close the box. Then once I'm happy with all my pieces and I have double checked and triple checked and made sure the sizes and everything is good, it's time to set the tool paths, and I'm also going to add some tabs so the pieces don't fly off as they're being cut, and then we can take the file to the machine. So this is the wood that I'm going to use for the box. This is a 1/4 inch white oak. It's beautifully figured. So because this is so thin, I have a piece of scrap plywood attached right here, and I know that this piece is perfectly 90 degrees. When attaching this, I first screw down this corner clamp to make sure I have it nice and straight. Now it's all about securing this piece to that piece. So I do want to position this exactly on the edge, so I'm sure that it is like straight. You know, this is a 5-inch board and I have like 4¼ inch is my biggest piece, so I can't put clamps everywhere. So I have these little, I can do just right on the edge, very, very carefully. So one thing I have realized when you're cutting thin wood like this on the CNC machine is that it requires a little more thinking than if you have like a thick piece of plywood, you don't care so much. First of all, because I have T-tracks underneath here, so I don't want the bit to come down too far and accidentally break. I have had my fair share of bits break. I don't want to nail into the wood. I also want to have downwards pressure. I don't want to just clamp it from like the sides. So I don't want the wood to float up, if you know what I mean. X, Y, Z, check. So these 1/2-inch box joints, they were cut with an 1/8-inch bit now, but if you try to put this together right now, they wouldn't fit. So by putting the 16th-inch bit, you get like that little relief cut so that they will fit together. So here you can see how important it is to get this board straight. Like even though it's straight, it's slightly tilted, and it cut perfectly, but right here you can see that it moved a little bit. These little relief cuts enable you to go like all the way in. So I have my pieces cut up for my little box, and then the next step here is just to glue up and assemble. So let's do that. One of these is a little shorter than the other. So this is the bottom, this is the top. This little guy goes with the top. So one reason why I really like doing a glue-in bottom is because it just stiffens up the entire box so much. It adds so much structure to it. So whenever possible, and when you're cutting stuff on the CNC, I mean, there's no reason not to cut out a bottom to glue in. Now, in order to get this in and out, I'm going to plane this board down a little bit. The other thing to think about when you're designing box joints and you have a lid like this, you need to keep in mind what is the final joint up here, depending on how you're going to have this opening. For, like, say for this one, I have this one. Here's a different box, and here you can see it has an open final joint. So you can see the difference. Closed final joint and an open final joint. Now this is fine here. I decided to add like a larger cap here, which to contrasting wood, and I really do like this design, but it's just something to keep in mind so you can prepare for it. If you want to add like a larger cap to hold on to. For this box, I was trying to make it very clean. You can use one piece of wood to make the entire box, and it looks like the same design. Just something to think about. I love these kinds of projects. They are simple yet so useful. And when I have the CNC, like I look at this box right here and I think this design, and of course you can make them any size, but this would be great for storage for anything. And that's the beauty of CNC. You can just cut a bunch of these now, and you can cut them in whatever material you have on hand, and just make sure that you alter the thickness in terms of the design if you're using different sized wood. That's really the one thing to keep in mind. But other than that, you are ready to just crank these boxes out and make a whole bunch, whether you want to sell them or whether you want to, make them for a large project or whatever it is. So there you have it, the basic steps of making a really nice, really practical looking box on the CNC machine. From designing, preparing, cutting, assembling. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much to our patrons for supporting this channel. We really appreciate it. If you want to become a patron, there's a link in the description below. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye!